Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the Bruno Galan talk show. My guest today is Jody Plauché, which I'm pronouncing as I would in French because I'm francophone, but I don't know how
What?
you would
No,
pronounce it in the US.
you pronounce it perfectly.
There you go. Normally, I guess
Not
normally
many
people
people
go
do. Go to
Plauché,
TikTok. Go to TikTok. People misspell it, mispronounce it all the time. So yeah, no, you got it
Plauché.
right.
I don't go to TikTok.
It is. It is. It's actually a French name, and my
Mhm.
first descendant, probably my 7 times great grandfather, came over, and his last name was spelled Plaucier, Plauchier. And then when he got
Yeah,
to New
yeah,
Orleans, they changed it to the American spelling with the accent mark over the E. So yeah,
yeah.
that's where the Plauché comes from.
Although Plauché, like ending with a accent aigu, e with
Yep.
an accent would also be legit French. My last name is actually Spanish, and originally there's an accent on the second A. But now that I'm in Canada, like in Canada and all that, we didn't carry it over because it's complicated. As I'm sure every time you have like to have documents or whatever. Anyway, even now on the keyboard, I had to copy paste. Like I don't know if you see the title of the room, and I don't. It's the first time I use StreamYard, so I don't know if it's gonna show up in the recording. But I had to copy paste the last letter of your name from
Oh,
another from your website. Anyway, yeah, all that long intro. First of all, I guess before we get started, we're gonna be talking about some very serious stuff. Just so we warn people, there's good. Jody has worked in centers to help victims of abuse, and has his own very personal story, um, which also not so personal because it wasn't the news and all that. But if you don't know who he is, I just want to anyone who's going to be watching, I just want to let you know we're going to be discussing some very serious stuff. And yeah, just so you're forewarned. So Jody, you I guess we should start with your book, right? You wrote a book called Why Gary Why, and I'm gonna let you talk about it. I don't want to be the one explaining what it is, so I'm gonna let you go ahead.
all right. So for those who don't know, when I was younger, I started taking karate from a man named Jeff Doucet, and he was at the time I think we started. He was 23. Um, he had just opened up at a karate school, and he told us about a competitive fighting team, and he asked if we wanted to join it. And of course, if you think of the Karate Kid, they go to tournaments and fight. We were excited to be able to go travel and to Houston and go to Astro World, New Orleans, and uh, we fought in Houston a couple of times. Baton Rouge, where I'm from, we fought there as well, and it was exciting. And unbeknownst to my parents and the other parents in the karate studio, Jeff was a pedophile. And so he would seduce or groom, I think is the term that would be more appropriate for child abusers. He would groom not just the child, but the parents, the families. And he started sexually abusing me. And that lasted about a year. And then he ran into some financial problems. And he ended up leaving the state to avoid the financial problems. And he took me with him since had been his love interest for the past year, which was kidnapping. And eventually I was, rescued in Anaheim, California. And I flew home March 1st, 1984. And a little over 2 weeks later, the police from Baton Rouge flew to California to bring Jeff back home. Well, when they did, my father found out what time he was coming back home. And as they were bringing Jeff through the airport, my dad, talking to his best friend on the payphone, turned around with a 38 snub nose revolver and with one shot ended Jeff's life. And it was caught on the news footage. It was caught on camera. So that video has been viewed over 20 million times, probably 200 million times in the last 40 years. Probably, in the last 10 years, has been 180 million times because of internet and YouTube and that kind of thing. And every Father's Day, people celebrate my dad. And at work, I have my book on the counter, and a guy walked in the other day, not knowing who I was, and he just looked at me and goes, "Every Father's Day, I put that man's picture on my Facebook page." So over the years, the legend of my father has only grown bigger and bigger, especially with all the injustices in the world. people getting away with sexual assault, rape, murder. And so my dad kind of stands as a symbol of justice for a lot of people. At least that's what my interpretation of it is. So for those who didn't know, that's not what my book's just about. That's part of what my book's about. Um, in 1998, I got a job in Norristown, Pennsylvania, working at a place called Victim Services Center of Montgomery County Incorporated. And I was an education specialist for 2 years. And after that, I became the supervisor of education. And we would go out in the community and we would do just community programs on sexual abuse prevention, sexual assault prevention. And I actually did, 7 years of sexual assault programs at Lower Marion High School. Um, and it was one of the best things I've ever done, moving to Pennsylvania. And, I write about that in a book, but I took my experiences at Victim Services Center. I was a certified sexual assault counselor. I used to train sexual assault counselors. So I took that experience and I incorporated all of that into my book. So it's not just my personal experience as
Mhm.
far as being a sexual abuse victim, but it's also my experience of being a sexual assault advocate and a sexual assault counselor. So I think for parents, for survivors, I think there's a lot of good, helpful information.
Yeah, there's something that you said at the beginning, and I lifted my finger at that one. I was like, yeah, very important, because that's something people like. It goes over their head. It really does. You said he didn't just groom you; he groomed your family as well. He made them drop their guard, um, and that is essential because it like you people underestimate the blind angles, the blind spots, right? They really underestimate. Like the I think the biggest issue is that people think it cannot happen to them, and that's when it happens. I think it's really important when you said that. Like I think that's I personally want to pinpoint on that. So I guess your book also addresses how he convinced your parents that he was a trustworthy person, right?
Right. Because
Like,
once you gain that trust, you open the door. And so when Jeff's like, oh, well, I'll bring him home from karate practice if you have to make dinner. Well, what mother of four or your father of four isn't going to be like, well, okay, great. Well, I can
right.
mow the lawn or I can cook dinner. So it opens up that trust, but it opens up that window where they're being alone with the child. So in order for someone who molests children to molest children, they have to get that child alone. That's why I would never let my child alone with any adult.
Which is which is kind of relevant because I think even when I heard your story that you would go to tournaments, I didn't know that aspect. I didn't read the book, by the way. So I'm a father as well. I have very little time to read books at this point. But
I'll tell you what, I can send you a promo code for the audiobook if you have time to listen.
I would love to, because I think it's very important for parents to be exposed to stories that are maybe sad, uncomfortable, depressing, but that can teach us a lesson on how to be better parents in the sense of defending our children, right? And defending a child. And this is a thing. Your father was obviously someone who would take matters in his own hands. So we're not talking about some like passive person here. Like this is someone who went after the guy. So I think it's very important to understand that. And I would really want to emphasize, because I think there's a lot of dudes out there, like for God's sake, Cain Velasquez, who's an MMA fighter, used to be heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC. Very sadly, his child was abused in daycare. It can happen to any family. Like, can you imagine, like the person who chooses that kid as their target? And like, so it's people just don't understand. Like, everyone has to be careful. It's not a matter. It doesn't matter how tough you think you are. Like your children are vulnerable. Um, anyway, sorry, I don't want to overtake too much,
No,
but it's
no, and my dad's been linked with Kane a lot. The only difference is my dad shot the right person; he shot the wrong person. I
yeah,
do.
that muddies the waters. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I do support Kane because I
yeah.
do know that he spent time in prison or jail, and I think, and I've done interviews with people who've worked with him, and I mean he values the time that he spent with his family, and he realizes, and I've said this in my book, that it's better for a father to be there for their child than put themselves in a position to be prosecuted, and so hopefully the courts will do like my dad did, or for my dad, and they will look at the circumstances and say, okay, what reasonable father wouldn't want to do this? and he actually didn't kill the perpetrator. I mean, again, he shot the wrong guy. I would say, yeah, he deserved to do time, but done time. He was away
Yeah.
from his family. So now I think he'd be better off served doing awareness and community service. So I'm an advocate for Kane, free Kane. If not, he'd beat me up. But no, I'm kidding. But but no, the guy should be lucky that he chose not to beat his ass. Oh, can I say that?
Oh yeah, it's look if I'm on YouTube right now, but there's other platforms like the minute that YouTube goes like, oh, this episode is pulled, I'm like, there's other
No,
platforms, man.
yeah,
So
so I
go
mean,
ahead.
I don't advocate for a parent of taking revenge, but like I said, he's lucky he didn't decide to beat him up because he would not have missed and he would have destroyed him.
That's a shame of it because I in a previous episode with Todd Atkins, who's an MMA personality, journalist, not journalist, commentator. Anyway, he has a show on MMA. We discussed it, and that was kind of my point. I did touch upon that, and I was kind of nervous if this subject came up because I didn't know what your stance would be regarding your father, and I was hoping my stance wouldn't. I was going to avoid it if possible, but if it came up, I'm an honest person, and I would have brought it up, and I was afraid to mention it. But my point was, I don't know that I wouldn't do the same because the rage must be overwhelming. But I think ideally the father is there with the son. It's more important to be there for the kid than to go take that revenge. And that was something when you said, I kind of feel relief because I was, I wasn't going to bring it up on purpose, but I'm honest. So if it came up, I didn't know how you would feel about that stance. Like
See, that's why I need
yeah,
to send you the audiobook so you can see where I said that.
yeah, yeah. It's but nevertheless, I think the difference, I guess, and I don't want to. Oh my, I'm not judging Kane. Okay, I want to make this clear. I'm not judging him because the pain he must have gone through, and no one is in their right mind if something so traumatic happens. So to be clear, I do not judge him at all. But I think the big difference was your dad went to the guy who did it, got him, and it ended there, right? Kane was in a high-speed car chase that could have shooting on the road, not straight to the target. So like a lot of other people could have been hurt around them. There was a passenger in the car who was hurt, and people have been debating. Well, if he was, I don't know if it was a family member. People were debating that, but at the end of the day, I think that was the big difference. Was a lot of people around were endangered as well. Like it could have been another family, and a kid could have gotten a stray bullet, and then we're going on another tragedy added to that. So um which anyway, again, I'm really not judging, but I think it's a big
It,
differential here. Yeah.
in 1991, me and my dad went on the Geraldo Rivera talk show, and the first question from the audience. Now you got to remember, Daddy shot Jeff in '84, and we never had any negative, comments. Everyone would come up to my dad, shake his hand, like, "You're my hero, you're my hero."
Yeah.
But the first question from that damn Yankee audience member in New York City was, how do you trust yourself to go into a public building and just start blasting away?
Okay.
And my dad looked at that guy and he said, when I looked down the barrel of that gun, I knew exactly who I was hitting. And I got to be honest with you, I was kind of proud of my dad. But then about 5 minutes later, we go to commercial break and I look over and Daddy's still staring at the guy. I said, Daddy, stop that shit. And he's like, all right, all right. But I mean, he had
Yeah.
never experienced anything negative. And so he was just like, why would you ask me that question? Like, you don't have kids?
Yeah.
So, and my dad was a good shot. But to give you an idea just how kind of, out of his mind my dad was, he literally was talking to his best friend on the phone.
Yeah.
He turns around, he shoots Jeff, and he hangs up the phone. Now, had he known 40 years later that people would still be walking or watching and talking about this video, he would have went and he'd have just done a phone drop, like a mic drop, because he didn't know. He thought he was going to die that night. I mean, he went there knowing he was going to attempt to shoot Jeff, and he might be killed in the process. And
Okay,
and you
the
know what he
police
was?
would react, and
Yes,
was this
and he
fear.
was fine with that.
But then he would have been there for you, of course. Which again, I'm not certainly not judging him, but
No, and that's why I don't advise any parent to do that, because you put yourself not only in a position to be retaliated on, but you put yourself in a position to be prosecuted. And so the title of my book, and I'll just pull it up one more time,
yeah.
is Why Gary Why. And that's what the police officer, if anyone goes to YouTube and looks at the video, my dad turns around and shoots him. And Mike Burnett, who was the sheriff deputy, he yells, "Gary, why, Gary?"
Yeah.
And he runs and he actually shields my dad from the other police officer, Bud Connor, because Bud was reaching for his gun, was going to shoot
He has no
because Bud didn't
context.
know.
Yeah, he
Bud
has
didn't
no
know my
context.
dad.
Yeah, yeah,
He just knows he's being shot at.
yeah.
Someone's blood got splattered on his face. So he's like, and you can see Bud gets up and he walks over to my dad and he puts the gun to the top of his head and he
I
goes,
saw
"You
that.
son of a bitch."
Yeah,
And he
yeah, I
turns
saw that.
around. Then he goes, checks on Jeff.
Yeah, I saw on your website. There's a video in the video section. What's your website again? Sorry, I googled it earlier. I don't have the.
It's jodyplauché.net, and that's
Net.
JODYPLAUCHE for those who aren't French. .net, NET.
Yeah, yeah, and the video section. It's very graphic. You see everything. You see the headshot and everything.
And
Just
I put the warning.
yeah. Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of weird because in a way, this is messed up to say, right? But I'm an honest man. Um, Knowing who got the bullet and how he received it, there's a disconnect where normally I would find the image very troubling. Knowing it's not a movie, but knowing who got the bullet, there's a certain disconnect from I'm fine watching it. It's really weird. Like just it's very primal, right? Like as fathers, we want justice, like for these things, and even if it's not our own family, but knowing these monsters out there, I had this disconnect where I was watching that, and I knew like I should be more bothered by this, but just knowing who got the bullet, I'm fine. It's very weird. Anyway,
When the shooting first happened, and there's a video on YouTube. I think it's WBRZ TV shooting airport, and the program director is like, I had to make a decision on whether how much of the shooting I was going to show.
yeah,
And then when he decided to stop showing the shooting, people called the station saying, "Why aren't you showing it?" So you're not the only one that had like this kind of like, okay, I shouldn't want to watch this, but this guy was a piece of shit child molester who, ass rape young boys. So there's a little satisfaction in that.
yeah, yeah. I guess I was. This is very messed up, but I guess I don't know how many people discussed it this openly, but I guess part of me checked and I saw, okay, the eyes are open. Okay, so there was some suffering before the end. There it wasn't like a complete, just lights off. Okay, good. Like
Oh no,
it's
no,
really
he
messed up.
he he died before he hit the ground. They kept him on life
Oh, okay,
support to harvest his organs. Yeah,
okay,
he
so
had
the lights off.
never had another conscious thought after that.
Okay,
I don't think he felt pain, and in a way that I don't want to say bothers me, but I would have liked Jeff to have gone to jail for the rest of his life and had to have that burden as the victim. If I was given the choice, I would say I want Jeff to go to jail for the rest of his life. We're
yeah.
all going to die. We are all going to die one day. That's absolutely 100% going to happen. Daddy let Jeff off easy. Jeff still doesn't know he's dead.
I had similar thoughts. My only because I think this case was very clear cut, right? It was like he was going to go to jail. There was no maybe
Yes,
about
he
it.
was going to jail
Yeah,
for the rest of his life. There's no doubt about that.
which would have been more, I guess.
Satisfying for me.
I think this is important because like again, I'm going to talk in a very stereotypical way about men. Every person is different, of course, but I think in men is this protective aspect and this very when we're talking about protection, we can get very aggressive, but it's also I think important to realize what matters is how the child is going to feel. That's as far as that's actual priority over need for vengeance, over desire for getting like for making the person pay is taking care of her children. um so I think it's important because I think like you say a lot of people, and I certainly understand his actions. A lot of people glorify what your father did, and I certainly understand, but I think it's important what you're saying is you would have been happy if he had spent his life in jail paying for what he did, instead of like this quick thing that happened and he's not aware that he's dead. So and being there for the kid because your story in that sense at least, your father didn't go to jail. He didn't, and I don't know like the laws in the states and all that, but you got to keep your father, which is very good. You know, like you got to keep your father because it would have been really tragic if he was already going to jail and your father did that, and then he goes to jail and you lose years with him. Like that would have been at such a crucial moment too, right? Um, so actually, I'm curious about that. Again, I didn't do a big research, so I will be able to ask questions more naturally. But how come he didn't do jail time? What was the decision behind that? Which I'm happy for, by the way. But
Okay, all right. So
yeah.
in 1984,
Hmm.
in Baton Rouge, Louisiana,
Hmm.
a man who had been raping a 10, 11-year-old boy for a year, who got shot by the father, they weren't going to convict my dad. So they offered him a plea deal because the DA knew that they weren't going to convict him. There was no jury in Baton Rouge that was going to convict my father. I
Okay.
mean, all right. So I saw one comment one time on YouTube that said, "Well, what if the boy lied?" And I responded back, which I often do. Um, if I find some misinformation, I'll respond back on YouTube, Twitter,
Yeah.
and I said I did lie. I said for the first 2 weeks that they after they brought me back, I lied. I said Jeff never touched me because I knew I had gone to the hospital and I knew the hospital report was going to come back positive that he had. So I lied until the hospital report came back. And as soon as the hospital report came back, I confessed. I was like, yes, he did. So I knew I couldn't fight science. And so I lied until I was proven wrong. And then I told the truth. So my dad knew what had happened to me when he shot him. So it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't a situation of where, oh, it was speculation. He thought it may have happened.
Yeah.
No, it was scientifically proven in an FBI lab that Jeff had left his DNA inside my body.
So okay, so basically we're saying different times back then it was just it wasn't based on the law, it was just based like I mean they did it legally but on paper, but it wasn't like based on a law where okay, this is loophole or a temporary insanity. It was just simply like here's a plea like that we're gonna make up for you because we don't want to send you to jail. That was basically
Yeah,
it. Like, the 80s were a
he
different time and it was just
well, the DA wanted to get some type of moral victory, so they offered him a plea of manslaughter. Because I mean, it was a lot of people think it was first degree murder, but it wasn't. I mean, my dad couldn't plan that far in advance, know what he was going to do. He just had a gun and went to the airport.
yeah.
Um, so they charged him with second degree, and that's mandatory. I think 25 years to life or mandatory life. But they offered him manslaughter, which is 25 years to life or 15 years to life, something like that. I don't know what it was in '84, but he accepted the plea of manslaughter. He pled no contest. That was for civil reasons, and the judge gave him, I think, a 7-year sentence of hard time, suspended it, and gave him 300 hours community service and 5 years probation.
Okay. So basically the way they got to get him out of that situation was to say um confess, but this is the plea we're giving you, and it's basically just look, do some
He
community
was
service.
my dad was a convicted felon, so he didn't get away with it scot free. I mean, he
Okay,
suffered consequences. He
yeah.
couldn't have a gun. He couldn't vote. He had to go to
Oh, right. In the
AA.
U.S., it's true. I don't know if it's like in Canada. It's true in the U.S. If you're a felon, you can vote, right?
You can't vote. Yeah,
Huh. Okay.
but
Um.
then again, he was Gary Plauché, and I still think was able to vote. Like they didn't hold that against him, or maybe he couldn't vote while he was on probation. But I know me and him went to vote, and he shouldn't have been able to unless it was the probation waiver. But yeah,
Yeah, I guess
um,
people are like, again, the 80s or the 90s, different times. And right, and then wait. So you mentioned, yeah, he knew for sure. Oh yeah, okay. I wanna. We don't we don't have to go over this, but I guess because you brought up, we can skip this question if you want. But why did you lie at first?
what did I like at first?
No, 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 no. Why did you lie? No, oh my God, no, 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 no. I didn't.
Oh, all right.
Why did you lie? Oh my, no, no, no.
Well, no, I like going to Astroworld. That was fun. I like going ice skating. I like going to the movies and the arcade. That
This
was
is
all fun.
yeah,
All right. So why did I lie at first? Because I knew I had gone to the hospital, and I knew like I didn't lie to protect Jeff. I lied to protect me, and I felt as an 11-year-old that if I would have told on Jeff, I didn't think at that time he was going to jail for the rest of his life. I figured he would get probation and he'd come after me for telling on him. So
Okay,
that's why I lied.
that was why.
I knew I'd gone to the hospital, so I knew the hospital report would come back positive. So that's why I lied until the hospital report came out, because then I could tell Jeff, no, you got yourself caught. I didn't tell on you.
Oh
The
yeah.
science got you.
So that was your logic as an 11-year-old. Like they didn't
Yes.
snitch on you; they just knew. Okay, I understand, and yeah, of course. Uh, so yeah, another thing that's were other kids. Did he prey on other kids in the group, or did he single you out? Were there other?
No, no, I wasn't that cute. He preyed on other kids. I know of two for certain. One I witnessed. One messaged me and told me I was a victim of Jeff. I suspect there were a few more, but I mean, there are at least two others that I know of, and one that I witnessed.
Sorry, it's a lot to process. I'm I'm not often at a loss for words, to be honest.
I'll tell you what. There's nothing. If there's something you think of that you want to ask me, there's nothing I won't answer.
Yeah. Oh, I'm also yeah, but there's things that I don't. I certainly want to avoid anything that might be like. I don't want this to be like a morbid watch. I want this to be an educative, like uncomfortable, educative watch.
All right. Well, let me just say this. All right.
Yeah.
For those who are watching this, go look at my Amazon reviews on my book. Okay. Because one of the reviews is my favorite one. She says, this book is funny. All right. So I wanted to add humor into my book. I didn't want people to take my book and then just go kill themselves. I wanted them to look at the messages, learn ways to, protect their children. I
Mhm.
wanted victims to, know that they can cope and they can survive and they can get through this. So I wanted it to be a positive book. So I think I interjected probably too much humor, but I think I put it on a little humor. And I like to say it's the best book about child rape, kidnapping, and murder that you'll ever read.
It's it's interesting though. I guess I know what you mean. Um, if anything, it might be a smart choice. I haven't read it, but I'll certainly take that promo code. I'm very interested in listening to it. I'll be able to do some chores and whatever as I listen, so that like
When you're
time.
driving,
Oh my god, like time is always never enough of it. But it's an interesting choice, and I guess it makes sense because at the end of the day, um, it's hard to convince people to expose themselves to that sort of subject matter, right? And I think this is why a lot of people convince themselves I just don't need to deal with that subject matter. But until some people do, so I think if anything, what you're saying is very smart. It's very intelligent to make sure it doesn't get too depressing, despite what you. So you're getting to teach the people who need to learn it, including those who might normally not want to go through with it once they start. So it actually makes a lot of sense. I think it's very intelligent of you to have structured it that way. I haven't read it yet or listened to it, but
well,
the
my
logic
my
is
mother
certainly.
my mother told me, she goes, I think you should have put more details. And I told her, I said, look, no, I don't. There doesn't need to be more details.
No.
I mean, you'll know what happened when you read it, and you don't need to know all the gory details. I told her, I said, I have to type a fine line between a victim, a survivor, reading the book that puts it down and doesn't want to read it anymore, versus some pedophile jerking off to it. You know,
Yes, I was going to bring that up later. Yeah, I was going to bring that up later because these are things that you have to keep in mind. You have to keep in mind because exactly, you don't want. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I didn't want a pedophile reading it like it was Penthouse Forum.
for them, yeah, exactly, exactly. That is, yeah, but I'm telling you, it is very rare that I'm at a loss for words. But this is such a heavy subject matter, and thank you for putting me at ease. I guess I should say because you're very you're making it easy for me to say, look, no stress. But even talking about it is harder than I thought it would be, in the sense that
I
I'm
was
not,
I
yeah,
would say, and by the way, I have not done a lot of cocaine right now. My beard normally isn't this long, and it's one of them itchy
yeah.
beards. So
Oh, me too.
I'm rubbing it a lot like I've been doing coke.
The-
But no, I mean,
That
And look,
that wasn't a coping mechanism.
I've been talking about this shit for 40 years. So,
Yeah,
like I said, it ain't nothing can't
yeah.
handle.
As a side note, I have like a really rough beard as well. As soon as it starts growing, but I have sensitive skin, so it's like the worst combination. Like a really rough beard, but so when it starts growing long, it's I'm always like scratching, and
Uh,
then I have to find the right razor and I have to do it right after a shower. Otherwise, I'm gonna like cut myself everywhere.
it's
But
coming off soon, I can assure you.
yeah,
I normally shave my head and I shave my beard. I just take the clippers and I go.
yeah. Yeah, I saw
So
your other your other your screenshots and all that, and then I saw you like, oh, the guy has hair and a beard,
I
and
had I had some friend of mine a couple years ago. They were like, "Wait a second, you can grow your hair?" I'm like, "Yeah," but you choose to shave it. I'm like, "Yeah." I just it's a comfort thing. It's just I feel more comfortable with no hair.
yeah,
Kind of like porn stars these days.
yeah. There you go. But um, when did was it with Vin Diesel? When did it start being a thing? In the early 2000s, right? Where people like it became cool. It wasn't just like
Well, I have a picture
people
of
used to do
me.
the comb over. It used to be,
I have a picture of me in 1989
yeah,
for my high school football, the opening game my senior year,
yeah,
where I had to agree with my mother to quit picking my face because I'm a picker. Like I just like picking. I've been picking over here earlier. I pick my
yeah.
arms. I'm a picker. And she's like, if you don't pick your face and let your face get clear up, because I'm a teenager, so I've got zits, um, then you can shave your head. And she let me shave my head before the first football game of the season. So I've been a fan of Mr. Clean for a long time.
Strictly. So were you doing any football or you were just watching that year?
Oh no! I played quarterback. Um, I played baseball, basketball, and my senior year I ran track. So I did four sports. Boom, 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 all through the year when I was in my senior year in high school.
Yeah.
Now I'm as unathletic as you can be as a 51-year-old nowadays because I'm a couch potato. But back in the day, I enjoyed playing sports.
Yeah. Yeah, this it's sometimes like, and I'm in my 40s now, and sometimes it's like you could show pictures of the past two people like that used to be you, and yeah, that used to be me, like, but what was I gonna say? And have you ever gone back into martial arts, or is that something that you just left behind now?
And, and it's not something that I didn't go back into it, but it's not something I would be opposed to.
Okay, okay.
I just wouldn't go back being raped by the karate teacher. I wouldn't go back into that.
Oh God. No, I guess not. Um, but yeah, no, I was wondering actually when you told me you were still into sports and all that, and even when I brought up Ken Velasquez, I thought maybe your reaction would be like, I don't pay attention to anything martial arts now. Like no, yeah,
No,
you,
oh look, trust me, I would love to go on Joe Rogan. I can assure you that is a dream of mine.
yeah. Well, you've been to Oprah, right? I saw on your
I
website.
have.
Yeah.
I've been on. You know what? I haven't been on any big time shows since the book came out. All that was before the book came out. So
I mean, I figured if you come to my show, you haven't been in Rogan yet. Otherwise, you wouldn't have answered. But, but,
oh
but
no,
the
I answer pretty much everybody.
no, actually, jokes aside, I figured you as the type who would. I know, like, I've been when I invite people and all that, I can tell who's looking at the follower count and who just wants to talk to the people interested in. And I know the types who don't necessarily are not necessarily going to say yes to everyone, but what they look at is not the follower count. They just look at what the person's doing with their show or who they're having over. Like, so I got that feeling from you that you're kind of like, if you want to talk to me, I'll talk to you. Like, as long as it's no clown stuff. That's the feeling I got, and we were both very matter of factly in our exchanges at the beginning, and which kind of told me, okay, like some people are kind of like unreliable, but I knew that you were gonna show up, and I didn't need to send more messages in the meantime because we set it up like last week or 2 weeks ago or something like
Yeah,
that.
like
Yeah,
once I put it on my calendar, it's on my calendar.
when you said that we put in a calendar, I was like, oh yeah, he's like me, cool. Like, because I'm like that. If in 3 months, okay, I'll put it like it's there. You don't need to. You don't need to be like, hey, is that still going on? Yeah, I put it on my agenda.
And if you're on my calendar, you have priority. Like unless Joe Rogan calls.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, like I'm not gonna try to. I'm certainly not gonna try to fight him for the spot. So
If Joe Rogan would have called me, I would have said, "Well, I was supposed to do Bruno's show tonight, but so I would at least have dropped, name dropped."
I was about to make that joke. I was gonna say, look, if you drop me to go on Joe Rogan's podcast, the way you can make it up for me is to mention my show. Like what, I was supposed to do Bruno Galan talk show. I'll still go back sometime, but so if you name drop me, I think that's it. We're fine. But actually, since we're talking about these things, and he was actually someone who got name dropped by Rogan. The reason why I learned about you was through Rob of Make Dojo Life, and I actually don't know if have you ever talked to him?
Yes, I have. You know who gave me who put me in touch with him was the Cajun Ninja. Have you ever followed the Cajun Ninja, the cooking guy?
No, no.
Oh
I
well,
mean, it
all
sounds
right.
like
When we're done,
a
go on
cool
YouTube
job.
and type into Cajun Ninja. I mean, he
Okay.
cooks Louisiana homegrown food, and he's very popular. He's got his own seasoning. But yeah, he's the one that put me in touch with him. And Joe Rogan follows McJojo Life.
Yeah, that's Rogan mentioning me Dojo Life is how and Rob was on my show. He was on my previous channel, Bruno's MMA show, which I stopped doing, and he was in my talk show. So in a previous episode, for anyone interested, the one on the MMA show, we actually discussed nunchucks because he does nunchucks videos, and it was really funny. We had a blast making jokes about that because he doesn't think they're efficient at all. Like he doesn't consider them a good weapon, but he's really good with them. So it's kind of like this contrast, right? Like of being really
That's
good
one
at
thing I
something
did.
completely. Sorry, go ahead.
The one thing I did learn in karate that nunchucks are terrible weapons because all you got to do is like throw a bottle at somebody. And, ah! But I did recently see Bruce Lee playing ping pong with nunchucks, and that was pretty impressive.
But that was computer generated.
Oh, was it?
Yes,
Then it's not that
it's
impressive.
not impressive. There's a guy called Shad. I think his channel is Shadiversity, and he's like this medieval weapons enthusiast. And he made this rant against the nunchuck, and he's like, you had a perfectly good stick, and you cut it in two.
I agree. I guess my karate training wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's funny. But Rob, of course, Rob of McDojo Life, the guy exposes martial arts frauds and predators.
Yep.
So sexual predators of all sorts, and that's he. And he received death threats and all that because of the work he does. Really good guy, doing very important work. And because it's not just like, even putting aside the sexual predators, going to bad martial arts schools is not just you get ripped off. Is you I have stories of kids dying from just being like, like a judo school from a fake judo teacher, and he keeps throwing the kid on the ground, and the kid died. And you have so what Rob does, the title is funny, McDojo Life, and he posts a lot of funny stuff, but he takes care of, like, he discusses very serious matters, again through the humor, like kind of like you, I guess. You mentioned like you like to use humor, but Rob will use a lot of humor, but at the end of the day, you look at the kind of like his ensemble body of work, and he's addressed some very serious shit. And he mentioned you quite a few times in his videos, and I think he mentioned you. My memory sucks. I don't know if he mentioned you in the episode I did with him, or I just remember him talking about it, and now I'm not sure if he told me or if I just watched a video of his mentioning it. But yeah, it's through him that I heard of your story. And because of the last names involved, I thought, for whatever reason, I'm a Canadian, and I thought it must have been in the province of Quebec in Canada, but then it's like another region of the
What
U.S. where it's very francophone. So.
what part of Canada are you in?
Well, I'm half Quebecois, French Canadian, and half Spanish. So that's why I assume I saw the last names, and I assume it must have happened in Montreal or something. But then,
My business partners, we just signed a deal with a production company out of Toronto. So hopefully we'll be turning the book into a docuseries or a documentary.
oh really? Okay, okay. I'm
Yeah,
in Ontario.
Forte Entertainment out of Toronto.
Okay,
So who knows?
cool.
Maybe I'll be going to Canada soon.
Hey, I mean, you know, Canada's a cool place.
Wait,
It's,
and when I say soon, I mean like next summer.
oh, okay. Well,
I don't do
um,
cold well.
yeah, I'm not in Toronto, unfortunately, but you're the third person. Like, I've talked to other people on the show. Like, there's a guy who does this, like, kind of like D&D inspired podcast. It's kind of like he does this story, but he rolls dice to decide where it goes. John from Tale of Manticore, and then Peter Watts, the sci-fi writer, the excellent sci-fi writer Peter Watts, and they're all in Toronto. And every time it's like, oh, if you come by Toronto, and I never have the time for it, but everyone's telling me Toronto. I guess it's a place I should be at. I don't know. Even now, you
I've been,
too. You're like,
I've been to Edmonton and Vancouver, but and I've been to Nakawit, New Brunswick. Those are the three. Is that Nakawit? Would that be Nova Scotia? Would that be Canada? Is Canada and
oh,
Nova Scotia? Is it the same thing?
don't ask me that. My wife is so pissed at me for not knowing provinces and capitals and stuff like that the way I should. So don't ask me those questions. I'm gonna get in trouble. But
Well,
Vancouver.
what's the capital of Louisiana? Baton Rouge.
Oh, okay. There. So is that the logo of Baton Rouge? Is
No,
Baton
that's
Rouge?
the logo
No,
for LSU,
LSU, which is what?
Louisiana State University.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's where you went to study, right?
Yeah, that's where I went to. Well,
There
that
you
I
go.
mean,
Okay.
I grew up in Baton Rouge. That's where the shooting took place, was at the Baton Rouge airport,
Yeah.
um, and that's where LSU's at. And LSU right now currently has the highest paid women's basketball coach, the highest paid NFL football player with Joe Burrow, and the highest paid NIL, that's name, image, likeness athlete, with Livy Dunn. If you don't know who Livy Dunn is, go to Instagram. She has a ton of followers.
Okay. For her skills in sports.
Her looks.
You said Instagram. I was like,
No, but
uh,
she's actually good at what she does.
mhm, of course, but like
Instagramming.
women's sports, there's a lot of follows. It's not because of that, unfortunately, maybe. But now I'm just thinking of the Bill Burr, like when he Bill Burr made a, like. Did you hear when he talked about women's sports and why they weren't getting paid the same? And do you hear that Bill Burr?
I have
Sketch?
not, but are you a fan of comedy?
Yes, actually, I'm supposed to have a. I mean, now see, this is like what I'm saying when I put something on a calendar, and we'll see if she can still appear. But I have. Well, I'm not gonna mention the name in case it doesn't fall through. But there's a comedian who's supposed to come to my show in January or February of 2024. But yeah, I'm not a fan in the sense that I know a lot of names, but I enjoy stand-ups and all that. But I just don't have the time to get into a new hobby again. But anyway, why were you asking? Sorry, I'm keep.
I would say back in July, me and my little brother, we drove to
Yeah.
Austin, Texas, and we went to Joe Rogan's Mothership Comedy Club to see Jim Norton. And Jim Norton's my favorite comedian. So those who don't know who Jim Norton is, go look up his specials and check him out. He's great.
Okay, I actually don't know who he is, Jim Norton. But you know what? I'll look him up. Jim Norton. Norton. Is it Norton? Norton? I get so mixed up when I speak
N
in
O
English.
Norton, Jim Norton.
Yeah, Norton. Oh yeah, no, I meant the pronunciation. Norton. I thought Tom Segura was really funny too. He was he made a sketch of the difference between like girls and boys. It was hilarious.
So within the past year,
Yeah.
me and my little brother, we've gone to see Jim Norton in Austin. We went and saw Burt Kreischer in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Mm,
We went and saw Theo Vaughn here in Baton Rouge. And Chappelle's coming to Baton Rouge this Friday or Saturday, and I'm
wow.
undecided on whether or not I'm going to go.
Why wouldn't you, man? That's
I
one of
just
the OGs of comedy at this point. Not OG,
because
sorry, but one of the goats.
no, he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
It's in New Orleans, which is an hour drive away, and I've become an old hermit in my old age, and I
Do
like to
it.
just sit at home and do nothing.
Just do it. Just go, man. Like it's Chappelle, right?
It is. We'll
Yeah.
see.
What's 1 hour? Like, and then you get to tell for the rest of your life that you want to see Chappelle live.
That's true.
I would do it.
I did once get to go in 1997. I went and saw Prince in Dallas, and it was the worst concert I ever went to in my life.
What?
He was terrible.
No
So
way.
I get to tell everybody I got to see Prince, but he was terrible.
Was he high? What happened?
I think it was right after he got married, and I'd have to look at the dates, but I know his baby died, and so I think it was around
Oh,
that time. And whether he was divorced, separated, baby died, it was around that period in his life, and it was just horrible. Now I did go see him a few years later in New Jersey, and he was off the hook. He was Prince. But the night I went, put it this way, I went and saw him in August of 97. In December of 97, he came back to Dallas to apologize and to make up for the show, that how bad the show was back
wow,
in August.
wow.
And I didn't go to that one. I went to the shit show.
Well, just karma owes you one. It's probably gonna.
I'll tell you a funny story though. When we were leaving, as we were walking with the crowd, we're all walking back to our cars. I kept saying, "Why didn't he sing Billie Jean? Why didn't he sing Billie Jean?" And everybody kept getting mad at me, going, "That's Prince, not Michael Jackson."
Oh, jeez. Yeah, but so you went to the comedy mothership, and you're like, okay, maybe I'll see Joe Rogan. Maybe maybe I'll go to his podcast. And in the meantime, you have to
Well, no, and let me tell you what happened.
put
Here's
up
what
with
happened
me.
to me. Here's why
What
I
up?
didn't get to, this is why I didn't get to see Joe Rogan,
Right?
because the night Jim Norton was playing at the Mothership Comedy Club, Chappelle was playing at the Moody Center up the street. So Rogan and Chappelle being, boys, I'm sure
Yeah.
Rogan went to see Chappelle, or I'm guessing Rogan went to
Mm,
see Chappelle. But, you know, it was
yeah,
a
that
great time.
was
I
yeah.
ended up on a hotel floor at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that comedy mothership looks like a really fun place. Um, yeah, I've never gone to like a big show. I've gone a few times to like small comedy nights and stuff like
I,
that. But
I probably prefer that, actually.
okay, okay. Is it because it's kind of like more like close and
Intimate and personal. I mean, like if I recommend to anybody who goes to New York City, go to the Comedy Cellar. I mean, I went to the Comedy Cellar. I forget when it was, but it just happened to be before Louis C.K. hosted Saturday Night Live,
yeah,
and I was at the upstairs bar. I forget the name of it, but it's not the comedy. The Comedy Cellar's downstairs, and I was at the upstairs bar waiting, probably to go see Jim Norton, and Louis C.K. was sitting right behind me talking to Dan Soder. They were just sitting at the booth right next to me, and
yeah,
I tried to sneak like a selfie, but I tried to just get them. But it was pretty cool. What Louis C.K. was doing was he was practicing his monologue for Saturday Night Live that Saturday. So I mean, that's where they try out new jokes, and you get
yeah.
to see them kind of in their rawest form. And that, to me, I'd rather see a raw comic than a polished comic.
I get it. Yeah, it's because then it's kind of like yeah, I get what you mean. I've been to a place when I used to be in Montreal. I forgot the name of the place, but that was basically you went there and it was understood that the comedians there were there to practice the stuff. It was kind of like very on the table. This is what we do here, and you were not allowed to film anything because they closed the doors, and if you went and started filming something, they would
Oh, at the
kick you out.
mothership, they put your phone in a bag, they lock it, and they hand it back to you. And then when you leave, you got to get the bag opened up and you leave. So that was kind of cool. But I'll tell you a funny story. And it's
Yeah,
actually, I mentioned it in my book about Jim Norton. All right. So, my dad shooting Jeff is kind of a, pretty popular, famous video.
yeah,
And during the Jerry Sandusky trial, Jim Norton was on the Opie and Anthony show. And some caller called in and was like, "Oh, there's this video you got to see. The guy shoots the guy in the New Orleans airport." And they start talking about it. So I knew Jim Norton knew who my dad was. So I went and saw him in Dallas. And I'm like, "Hey, Jim, I'm Jody Plauché. My dad's the guy that shot the guy in the airport." And he's like, "Oh, wow. Okay. All right, let's take a picture. I'm going to send it to Anthony."
yeah,
And so all these people are wondering, like, who am I, with Jim Norton taking a picture with me?
yeah.
Well, a few years later, I went to New York City, and he was at the Fat Black Pussycat. It's a bar, and inside that bar, they have like a little room where comedians, they have what's called New Joke Night on Mondays, where they go try out new jokes. That's all they're
Mhm.
doing, is they're trying out new jokes.
Yeah,
If they suck, they will scratch them off. If they like it, they'll put a check. And so Jim was doing a 1 hour show in at the Fatback Pussycat, and so I got in there, and before the show, I saw him in the bathroom. He's like, "Hey, Jody," he's like, "You look like you lost weight," and I'm like, "Yeah, I had." And so me and my friend Tiffany, we go and we sit. We're like second row, front row, like I mean middle, like just right. I mean, he's 5 feet away from me.
Yeah.
So he's doing crowd work, and he looks at this one guy, and he's like, "Hey, what's your favorite genre of porn?" And the guy was sitting with his girlfriend or his wife or mistress or whatever, so he didn't answer it. You know,
Yeah.
he was just
Smart
sitting there
guy.
kind of looking at it. So Jim's like, "Oh, so you don't want to answer?" So he looks at the crowd and he's like, "Hey, someone out there, tell me what's your favorite genre of porn?" Well,
Yeah.
the girl I was with, Tiffany, she yells out, "Anal!" And Jim Norton that quickly looks at her and goes, "Ma'am, do you know who you're sitting next to?" He's like,
Oh.
"That's my friend Jody." Then when Jody, and he looks at me and he goes, "Is it okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "My friend Jody, when he was younger, was kidnapped and sexually abused by his karate teacher, and his father shot him." And so all of a sudden, I get a standing ovation at this little comedy club in New York City, and I'm waving to the crowd. And Tiffany's like, "Jody, my God, I'm so sorry." I said, "Tiffany, there's nothing to be sorry about." I'm like, "My favorite comedian just introduced me to the crowd in New York City. I'm good."
I guess it's now that you bring it back, I guess, and like the way that I mean, you obviously what I recognize in you is a very astute ability to discern between sensitive subject matter and intention behind bringing it up.
I
So
do.
yeah, so it's kind of like a comedian can make a joke about that, but you know where it's coming from, and it's
Oh
not evil. You know,
no, it was there
yeah.
was nothing evil about it. I was impressed that
It was
he
just
I was
the
proud that
coincidence of it, like was just for a comedian is like right there, and he even asked you, like, yeah,
I'll tell you the one thing I wish I didn't know her. I wish it was just some stranger sitting next to me. That would have been even better
yeah. But
because she knew the story.
yeah, but then you get to see your friend all embarrassed, and you're like, well, now you pay me a drink or something. But no, but yeah, were people growing up like, were people in school and all that, like, were they shitty about it, or were they actually supportive, or no one brought it up, or how was it?
No, there was only one guy, and again, this is in a book. There's one guy. He was a neighbor. Maybe seventh grade. We were in PE, and at the end of the PE class, I guess we were, talking shit to each other. And he looked at me and he's like, "At least I didn't get effed in the butt by Jeff Doucet." And I wanted to kick his ass, but I was like, you know what? I was, martial artist. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to resort, take a deep breath. Well,
Yeah.
my friends heard it and they wanted to kick his ass. And when he got off the bus that day, he
Yeah.
had to run home because they chased him. They were going to go, you
Oh my
know,
gosh. Yeah. Well,
well, guess what?
he went too far. He went too far. So,
Well, guess what?
but
He was arrested for child molestation and he died in jail of cancer. So to me, I was like, maybe he was jealous. It
yeah,
wasn't him.
or he had to bring it up because it excited him or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and we played baseball in high school together, and I was cool with him, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish death on him. But, the fact that he was in jail for 20 years for molesting children tells me there was something wrong with him.
So that's the only person who brought it up.
That's the only person that ever said anything negative to me.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I'm making note of it. I guess that they're the only person brought it up, and then
I'm sure there were a
as an
lot of
attack.
people. I'm sure there was a lot of people when I walked away at a party when I met somebody. They were like, "You know who that was? That was the kid. That was the dad shot the
Yeah, but
guy."
that's not ill. That's not like ill intention. It's just
Right. That's
people
just
being
informative.
yeah.
'Cause I used to always wonder. I'm like, how come everybody remembers me and I don't remember them? Well, obviously because my dad's got somebody on TV.
So you still, I guess, this is something because I like martial arts and all that, and I do wonder what's your relationship with martial arts. Like, is it something like can you dissociate where you can still be like, I don't know, like if someone attacks you, can you still be like, oh yeah, I know how to kick, I know how to block, or is there like, did you kind of like put it aside in your head because there's too much association? How did you?
No, all right. So if I'm at a bar and some dude walks up to me and says, "You need to leave, I'm gonna fuck you up," I'll leave. I'm
Yeah,
confident,
that's
but I, I you
because
know, I, I'm too
yeah,
out of shape,
just never
But
that good.
if I feel threatened, I feel very comfortable defending myself.
Yeah. Well, if you did quarterback, also you're physical, you know how to use your weight, even if you're out of shape, as you say right now, which I'm taking your word for it. You don't look too bad in the video, but if you tell me, I'll believe you. But the other day I did some punching bag and I was like, oh my God,
So,
it wasn't that tiring. It used to be, I could go on and on and on. And I'm like, but I know the feeling of remembering how your body was and not being like that
oh
anymore.
no,
Yeah.
I
But
probably would take my shoes off and I'd probably try to do a side kick and rip all my muscles out of my head.
step
Um,
on a broken bottle without the shoes, die hard
but
style.
but I still know how to technically throw a side kick. I don't know if I'm in shape enough to actually throw one, you know.
Mhm.
And we took Hapkido, and so Hapkido's got kind of got like a mix of judo. So there are chokeholds and pressure points and
Yeah.
different you use their leverage against you. So I still think that with the average person, I mean, I don't want to compare myself to like just take someone who boxed. Just take an average boxer, right?
Yeah.
James Georgetown. Okay, you
I
can
don't know who
Google his
that is.
name.
Average.
Do what?
I don't know who that is, but pro
Well,
boxer with an average record. Is
most people won't know who he was, but he was a professional boxer
that
here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or in Louisiana, and he probably had a 2-win and 18-loss record. And my little
wow.
brother, who took karate with us,
Hmm.
he got in a was sparring with James Georgetown, and James Georgetown could have knocked him out as soon as possible because even though he wasn't successful against other boxers, against the average person, Georgetown would
Well,
mess
yeah,
him up. You
yeah.
know, I mean, you take the worst MMA fighter or UFC fighter, the
They
worst
would
person
win.
who ever
They would probably win UFC one.
they would defeat some drunk at a bar.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, okay, I do want to mention like the context of real life. There's always like someone's gonna headbutt you out of nowhere. There's all of those considerations. But like, let's say like he's ready, the other guy's ready. They just go at it. Yeah, it's even the average blue. Like I always say, like the average blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, if they're comfortable taking punches, because that's a condition. You need to have that in you. To be able to take that punch, but it's like the average person it doesn't take that much but it's interesting because the scale has shifted a bit because MMA has become so popular that even now untrained people still know some stuff. Maybe they've never done it, but they don't. I've seen over the years, and now I don't go out anymore. But like years ago, when I last few times I went out, if I saw people kind of like, you would see sometimes people who you could tell were not trained, but you would start to see them do stuff that made more sense, even if they did completely wrong. So less like windmill punches, like stuff like that, where it's like the common man has
If
started to pick up some things, but it's still not the same as doing it. Like
if you know how to throw a punch,
a jab. If
you're
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 jabbing
ahead
from
of the
full
game.
distance, you're already yeah.
You're ahead of the game. If you're doing this, yeah, yeah, I'll take my chances with someone doing this.
But this is why
You know,
back then karate like this block, and now it's like, well, against a boxer that, yeah, but against like karate like in isolation in Japan back then, most people are doing this. If the guy just goes like this and this, that's already like way above. Then of course you put him against a Western boxer. Maybe don't parry all the way here. Maybe keep it closer. But like anyone who like Jean Claude Van Damme, people make fun of that guy would even now would mess up, like would head kick 98% of the population into unconsciousness. Like
me and my little brother have a rule: if
yeah,
someone's ears look like this, don't mess with them.
yeah. Can you imagine someone just like wanting to be seen as a tough guy but not wanting to be one, and they just start messing up their ears?
Hey, I'd leave the bar. I'd be like, all right, you can have her.
Well, it depends who her is, right?
Well,
But
yeah, no, yeah,
yeah,
I don't mean, yeah, I don't mean my sister.
I'm just
I'm just
messing
talking
up.
about like if me and him are trying to talk to the same chick. Yeah,
I know. I knew the context. I just wanted to mess with you because of the. But yeah, no, yeah. Those are the signs. You know what to look for. Like, but nose, ears. Like, but like if it looks like it's been repeatedly And then yeah,
Yeah,
there's a nasal way in
yeah,
that which a person talks.
yeah. Then you hitting him is not going to hurt him. It's not. It's just going to piss him off.
Yeah, you gotta put him out at that point. If you get into this, you gotta. But yeah, man. So I guess something that I kind of want to go back to because I'm having a lot of fun talking to you. But like before this is all said and done, and we're reaching 1 hour now. I really want to go back a little bit to when families are groomed as well, and I'm bringing us back to the subject matter after a few laughs. But this is something I kind of like in every conversation. I try to have like one goal. Okay, what am I gonna get out of this conversation? What's gonna be like we can go everywhere with the conversation, but I try to have maybe sometimes like, and at least when I have a serious guest as yourself, who's done important stuff, who's done relevant stuff, like, um, what would you say? What would you tell families? Like, let's say, like a parent is watching this. Um, I mean, I guess trust your instincts is a cliche, but it's extremely, extremely relevant. I'm sure. Uh,
Well, you know what? In the grooming process, a lot of the times your instincts are taken away before your instincts will kick in.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on that one? Because that's the
All
first
right.
time someone
So
brings that up.
so if you think to yourself, this is kind of creepy, like this man's hanging around our kids. Well, they're not going to do that right away. They're going to build your trust before they start trying to spend time with your kids. But the one thing that try to tell parents that if someone wants to spend more time with your kids than you do, that's a red flag.
Well, yeah, that's
Actually, it's a missile. It's a rocket. It's not just a red flag. It's a atomic bomb.
it's interesting because there's this way of social deflection, and I'm going to use a weird example here, but back in my early 20s when I was going out and I had no social skills, and you try to approach like a girl in a bar or something, and then like the boyfriend comes up, and you didn't know, you're not trying to cause trouble, but like the guy shows up, and one thing I would do right away without hesitation would be to be like, hey, how you doing, and shake his hand and make him comfortable, and then I would like kind of like you know. Gradually quickly but gradually leave them to be and like, oh well, have a good night, like, and so it's kind of like I diffused by automatically being friendly with a boyfriend, and of course there's no malice in this, it's just me not wanting to accidentally start a fight by not having known that the girl was with someone and all that, again back when I was single in my 20s. But I guess as you're telling me this, I'm kind of like remembering, oh yeah, that's a thing you can do, like the target was this, but the person involved, you just oh, you're welcome too. Like that sounded like something else, but you're welcome to.
Well, no, you're de-escalating a situation that you don't want to evolve into a conflict.
Yeah,
So
of
that's
course.
different. That's different than trying to screw someone's kids.
Very, very different. What I meant to say is that there's ways of making the person at ease, the person who's kind of like watching over the other one, be it because, hey, that's my girl or that's my kid, which is, as you say, a completely different context. But so in your case, okay, in your case, the what your predator did is he took kind of like he used the fact that your parents were busy. I think you have many siblings. You
Well,
said,
no,
right?
first off, he gained the trust of my parents. All right, so um, the first couple months that Jeff was around, he was at least in my household with me and my brothers. He was a perfect citizen. Like he didn't do anything wrong, but it was a gradual. Like okay, it's almost like levels.
But how
Okay,
did he get invited to the house in the first place? Because you take the kid to a karate class, but how does the karate instructor go to the house? How does that happen?
that's a good question. He just again built a trust. He would talk to my parents after the karate class. Um, my dad was an entertainer. He liked to host people. So my dad probably was like, you know what? Hey, we're gonna. Oh, no, I'll tell you what. Maybe it was he wanted to take us crawfishing, and so we went crawfishing one Saturday morning, and we had a crawfish ball with the family. The initial time was we went to the movies, and then my family was at Chuck E. Cheese celebrating one of my cousin's birthday. And after the movies, we all went to Chuck E. Cheese. So now he's mingling, he's hanging out with the family, he's gaining the trust, and everyone's like, oh, Jeff's one of the people. So
Yeah.
that's what he did. Um, Again, then after Chuck E. Cheese, then we have the crawfish boil. So now all of a sudden it's like, hey Jeff, you know what? Hey, we're having a barbecue on Saturday. Why don't you come over and join us?
Yeah.
Because he had already, gained that trust.
Do you think there's a bit of the, in Baton Rouge and all that, that kind of like hospitality, that's part of the culture that predators can kind of exploit, whereas in other places where people are a bit more like not as like community centric, I guess I'm saying like, could it be possible that they also exploit places that are more community based, where it's easier to be invited in, if you will?
They look for weak spots. They look for, broken homes. They look for, children looking for attention. But yeah, in Louisiana, especially in Baton Rouge, you go to I could bring you to an LSU football game. I won't know the people, but I promise you, you won't have to pay for a meal or a drink. We can just walk
Yeah,
around to the
that's the impression
tailgate
I was
party,
getting.
and I'll be like, "Hey, he's from Canada. Is this his first LSU game?" And they'll be
Yeah.
like, "Eat, eat, eat, drink, drink,
uh,
drink." I mean, that's just the culture
wow,
down there.
you're making Baton Rouge sound really cool right about now.
Well, look up the murder rate. It won't be as cool. All right.
So we lost connection there for a moment, but you were saying that with the murder rate, maybe the food isn't worth it for.
Well, no. All right. So, Baton Rouge has a pretty bad murder rate, but LSU's campus is very safe. So, they're Baton Rouge. There's certain areas, kind of like most cities, where all right, this is kind of like a sketchy area, but most of the crimes,
Mhm.
the people know each other.
Yeah. So yeah, it reminded me of what we're talking about. It reminded me of this. Laugh at the example I'm giving, but this Goosebumps episode from the '90s, and the very first episode, I think, because it was on Netflix at some point, and just for the heck of it, I kind of like watched the first few episodes, like because I remembered it vaguely from my childhood, and it was this like horror show for kids. It was never like it never went too far, but there were monsters. It was creepy and all that. And the first episode, I think, was the teacher, the librarian, or something like that of the kid was a monster, and like the kid was trying to warn the parents, like, no, don't let this person in or something like that, and they were like, but that's your teacher, and I was thinking like, wow, that's a very '90s thing, because these days I think people, like parents, would be a lot more wary. They wouldn't be like, I guess if the kid is warning them, they wouldn't be like, oh, but that's your teacher, it's fine. Like these days I think people would be more like,
I don't think they are.
oh really?
And I will say this, and if they are, then the child predator is going to go for the ones who aren't.
Yeah,
For example, and this is, again, I hate to keep saying I mentioned this in my book, but I will say this. I hate
you
when
did.
people say, I mentioned this in my book, and they don't tell you the story. So I'm going to tell you the story. I used to wait tables, and it used to piss me off when I would go up to a table and I'd be like, what can I get for y'all to drink? And the parents would be like, oh, I'll take a glass of wine. I'll take a glass of wine. Then they would look at the kid and be like, what do you want? And the kid would go, Coke. And they go, no, just get him milk. Well, he wants Coke. Just like the stripper. He wants Coke. So, or another one is, go hug your Aunt Peg or
Yeah,
your Uncle Paul. No.
which they barely,
If
who
they,
they barely know. Yeah.
yeah, if they don't want to hug Uncle Paul, maybe there's a reason why they don't want to hug Uncle Paul. Maybe
I,
Uncle Paul's
yeah.
creepy. So don't make your kid hug or touch anybody they don't want to touch.
Yeah, actually, that's something when I was when I first met, like some of my wife's family with the kids, I would always be like, uh, like I would tell the parents like, no, no, it's okay, don't insist, on them,
Yeah.
like, or I
Yep.
would be like, do you want a high five? And normally
High
they love
five,
high fives.
knuckles, knuckles.
They love high fives, so that's
Yeah.
never an issue. And you get to establish that rapport without. I agree with you. I don't want, like, it's kind of I don't want an adult telling a kid they should, like, insisting on the kid hugging me. I'm like, no, no, no thanks. It's weird.
I I
I mean,
don't
I
tag
know the intention
someone.
is good, but it's just
I don't tag someone in a Facebook photo unless I ask them or check in. Like if I'm at Hooters with my boys, I'll be like, "Hey, look, you cool if I tag you? You cool if I tag you? No, don't tag me. All right, I'm not gonna tag you." Because
I wonder
I
why.
have one friend of mine. He went to a party. I think it was like some boxing pay per view, right?
Yeah.
And his wife didn't go with him. And the next thing you know, someone on Facebook tagged him, and he was not supposed to be drinking, but in the picture, he's got like drinks and he's drunk, and like his eyes were red. And so his wife saw that.
Yeah.
And he almost got a divorce because he wasn't supposed to be drinking, but he went to this party and did drink. But one of his dumbass friends tagged him in a photo of him, bloodshot eyes, almost passed out. So yeah, I take that into consideration. I take into like, you might be cheating on your wife, your girlfriend, but she might not want you to be here at, Twin Peaks or Hooters. So I asked, is it okay if I tag you? Don't tag me. I won't tag you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted
I
to
mean,
mention you were.
it is, yeah, it's something that a lot of people now just take for granted that they can just tag people and, um, like, oh, I know you, therefore, why don't you follow me back on Facebook? And it's kind of like there doesn't seem to be yet a sense of boundaries, with social media. And of course, you see so much behavior of people not wanting any boundaries for themselves that it kind of gives the impression that that's just how it is, like. But
I'll tell you, it's not a funny story, but it's a true story.
yeah,
A friend of mine, she was working as a flight attendant,
yeah,
and she had just started working as a flight attendant. I think she was living in Atlanta, and
yeah,
she got her first trip to LA.
yeah,
So she posted on Facebook, "Oh my God, I got my first trip to LA. I'm going to be gone for 4 days. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be so exciting." 4 days later on Facebook, "Oh my God, somebody robbed my apartment while I was gone." Like, you just told someone you ain't going to be there,
yeah.
So
Post
my
the
advice would,
trips, post the pictures after if you have to,
when you
like,
get home, hey, here's the pictures from our trip to
and you make it clear
Brazil.
you're back, like from last week.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
I
back
got some.
home. This is from last week.
I got some neighbors that went to the U.S. Open, and they're posting, "Hey, we're at the U.S. Open," and I'm like, "Huh, I could go steal your puppy, like,
Yeah,
or kick it anyway."
yeah, yeah. It's it's crazy. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, we're already over 1 hour in, and I'm having a lot of fun talking to you. And I really thought, I guess, again, it goes back to, I guess, how you wrote your book. But I really thought I was gonna get out of this like very depressed. But you're a really fun person to talk to. Uh,
Is there any one question that you want to know?
No, I wanted to kind of address. I guess there's no universal answer, right? But like how families get groomed as well, because that was what stood out to me. Like, obviously, your dad was someone who would not allow for something to happen to you, and it still happened. So I thought that was important because, again, I think people, and that can go regarding anything. People underestimate danger all the time. Like one time, and in my apartment, a friend was visiting, and the girl I was seeing at the time were there. And then I went out to get some stuff. I don't remember what happened, but I came back and they had left the door unlocked. And I went all the way up to the apartment, like, guys, you left the door unlocked. And my friend was like, "Well, we're here." Like, as in, he's thinking like, "Oh, nothing's gonna get stolen." I'm like, "Yeah, but you guys are here, and it's not just the stuff in here, like." And maybe that's a silly example to some, depends where you live, but um, I feel like people underestimate danger all the time. They think it's kind of like, again, the MMA fighter Anthony Smith, where this crazy guy invaded his home at night, and he fought him off and all that because he's an MMA fighter. But the thing is that he admitted after the fact, like, he didn't lock his the door from his garage, so the guy got in the middle of the night, and his whole family lives in that house. And he admitted after, "Oh, I was thinking who's going to be crazy enough to break into my house." But then he admits, "But of course, not everyone knows who I am or that I live there." So it was kind of like a nonsensical thought, really. But he just, I don't know. I think there's this blind spot in men where we just, if we're confident, we assume that, and this is something if anything, I constantly remind myself, shit can happen really fast, you know, and or you can have blind spots created over time, blind spots. And I really, I think I want to hammer that in this conversation with you. So I was really, that was the point I wanted to address. But of course, as you said, it's not that simple. But I like that you mentioned that the one thing they'll do is they'll take your instinct away from you before it has a chance to set in.
All right, so I don't know if you got to watch this or not, but back in 2013, ESPN did an E60. That's kind of like a little 15-minute kind of documentary about it. It's on YouTube. You can go look it up.
Okay.
And there was a situation where we went to Fort Worth, Texas to fight, and it was my mom and dad. We all went, and it was we went with Jeff and the Karate Kids. And after, my uncle lived in Dallas, and so we were going to spend time with my uncle in Dallas, hanging out with my cousins. And Jeff didn't want me to go, but we met on the side of the interstate, so we can make the exchange where I go to my uncle Jeff, and Jeff Doucet went on back to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, and I don't remember it, but I did remember it back in '93 when I started writing a book. When we got out of the van, Jeff gave me a kiss on the lips. And my uncle went to my dad and he said, something's not right about this relationship. He's like, I don't kiss my own kids on the lips. And my dad defended Jeff and said, no, you just got to understand Jeff. He loves kids. He's very affectionate, And so my dad was even trapped into that mindset where, he wasn't looking at Jeff as being a bad person, where my uncle was like, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Because he came in fresh. He didn't come in after having been worked on for a long time.
Right. My uncle had never met Jeff before.
Yeah.
Yes. So my uncle wasn't blinded by that grooming process. And he's like, no, something's not right. And my uncle was right.
This is something, it's actually Rob from McDojo Life who said that. And that wasn't a video with someone else. That wasn't with me, but he had said that. And he was talking about frauds in martial arts, but it applies to this too. It's kind of like the most vulnerable people are the ones who are convinced it could not happen to them, because then they're not on their guard. They're not wary,
Yeah, there's nothing I hate more than hearing someone go like, well, we didn't think that would happen to us. Why not? You're a person. You're a human. Things like that don't happen in this town. Yes, it does all the time. You just don't know about it. Go to church.
Dude, I hate when people have that attitude. They're just like magical thinking, like, oh,
No, and I think my parents may have said the same thing, like, you don't think this will happen to you.
Well, most people do. That's to be fair, there's a few things never that happened to me, but I've been in close proximity to shit that happened that quickly in my early 20s, like completely made sure that I would never see the world that way. So what happened was one time, me and a friend of mine, like he was dating this girl, and we were at the wait, we're at the mom of the friend of the girlfriend of my friend's apartment, and her ex-husband, the father of that girl, was there. And me and my friend just went to have a few drinks, and we left the girls there, and we just went and came back. And when we came back, like there was like sperm on the floor, like sperm dust on the floor. The door of the bedroom had been broken. So the guy had basically raped his ex-wife, with whom, like the mother of his kid that he was no longer with, he had raped her getting drunk, and then he decided that, well, he was going to do that. And the police had already shown up and everything by then. Like, we went for drinks. Like, I'm in my early 20s. We went out for drinks. I come back, and this is what happens when we're away. And then it's kind of like you're a guy in your 20s. No matter if I had no fighting experience or anything, but you think you're a guy in your early 20s. You think those things are not going to happen because you are around. But no, you're not always around. And so we leave. We come back, and then and since then, it's like, if I don't know a dude, I'm not leaving people I know around. Like, I'm gonna stay there, especially if there's alcohol involved. And so I was so like, we went and we came back, and all of that had happened. It wasn't like anyone close to me, to be clear. Like, it was the friend of the girlfriend of my friend, But it's just it quickly robbed me of this illusion that things don't happen, because things happen very quickly.
I can't wait to send you the promo code to my book, because I was at a and my friend was just here a couple weeks. He lives in Minnesota, or actually he lives in Wisconsin, and he was coming down on a little trip with his daughter to New Orleans to visit his dad. So he stopped by the house for about an hour, and we hung out. But I met him. Let's see, if I moved to Pennsylvania in '98, it would have been Valentine's Day 1999. I met him. So this bartender at Hooters in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, was like, "Hey, I'm having a singles party for people who don't have partners on Valentine's Day. So it's a called Love Stinks party." And she's like, "So why don't you come?" So I was like, "Well, hell yeah! If these a bunch of Hooter girls going to be there with no boyfriends, let's
Yeah.
go! Woo woo!"
Yeah.
So I get there, and she was the only single Hooters girl, and she had 25 dudes that were trying to get with her hanging out at this one party. Well, she ended up getting shit hammered, and it was getting late, and most of the people left, but there were these two guys that wouldn't leave. Well, I wasn't going to
Yeah.
uh, leave her alone with these two guys because she was passed out drunk. She was in like I literally put her in her bed, and
Yeah.
so I was like, all right, if these, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if these two guys aren't going to leave, then you know what? I just went in a room, I locked the door, and I laid in bed with her. We didn't go to bed, we didn't sleep
Yeah.
together. We slept
Yeah.
separately in
Yeah.
the same bed.
You passed out.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
sexual. It was
Yeah.
just I'm
Yeah.
looking out for my friend.
Yeah.
And when I we woke up the next morning,
Okay, you knew her. You already knew her.
yeah, I knew her.
I
She
was
was
gonna say because maybe she would in the morning she might accuse you because you're in the bed or something. Okay, so
nope,
you know
nope.
who it was. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So when I woke up the next morning with her, we walked out of the bedroom, and these dude had ransacked her house. They literally broke plates, glasses. They threw food on a wall. Like it was the most messed up scene I'd ever seen, really, for like people who were supposed to be friendly.
Yeah.
And that told me, and again, it's mentioned in my book, and me and her have this special connection that like we know had I not stayed with her that night, those dudes would have done something
Yeah.
messed up with her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. Um. Just like a stupid example, but um, like even unleashed dogs. Like people like me. If I see an unleashed dog, and I don't, and unless it's like anything that's bigger than a Chihuahua, I pick up my kid.
and I would too.
And I see people, it's like they don't want to face the social awkwardness of letting the dog owner know that I don't trust your dog because I don't know that your dog. But me, I'm like, your dog should not be unleashed in the first place, like it's just details like that. I don't get it. Anyway, that we could go over and over like nonstop. It's obvious when but for whatever reason not everyone wants it to be obvious. I guess they don't want that kind of thinking in their lives, but you need to have that kind of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very trusting of people, unleashed dogs, men. Uh, and again, I have two brothers. I have a father, I had a father, I had an uncle. I mean, I've been around a bunch of good people in my life, but and I almost dedicated my book to all the coaches, and because I like to say that in order for you to molest children, you have to be around children. So people who coach, Boy Scout leaders, clergy. I mean, people, teachers, you have to be around children to molest them. So I almost dedicated my book to all the coaches who never molested me because I had plenty.
Yeah.
I had plenty of coaches growing up. Only one was a jerk
Yeah.
or a perv or whatever you want to call him, a
Yeah, a
sicko,
monster. A monster. Yeah.
a monster.
Yeah.
I don't like to, and again, I mentioned that I
No,
don't
no, go
like to
ahead.
use that.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to use that term monster because if you ask a second grade kid, draw me a picture of someone who hurts kids, they're going to draw a monster, not their uncle, not their
Okay.
stepbrother.
Yeah.
They're going to draw someone that's evil, not someone known to them. And that's important to know that most of the abusers are people who are trusted adults or trusted people around your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's again. Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. I guess this is stuff you have to tell people all the time because it's so easy to go. That's monster. That's the descriptor, and then you're like, well, this is why you might not want to do it. And when you say it, it's a very very good argument. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
kids
you
are
repeat
taught
yourself over and over. But
kids are taught to say no to strangers, but they're not taught to say no to their Uncle Paul. I mean, that's just the facts. Like I
Yeah.
said earlier, oh no, go hug Uncle Paul.
No,
I don't
if,
want to hug Uncle Paul. No, no, go do it. No, don't make your kid do that.
no, no, because
So
you're removing, like, you're making them feel like they have this obligation. And I think there's been some psychological studies that, especially in women when they were girls, and then as women, they are not comfortable in how they're gonna reject someone because they subconsciously feel that obligation. So they might be they might not be direct enough in rejecting someone or telling them like, no, look, remove your hand around my waist right now, whereas because they might not like it, they might be uncomfortable, but they just, through having been told as kids, yeah, yeah, go hug this person, or aren't you friendly, like blah blah blah, and then they just have that mental blockage in just saying like, hey, you know what, remove your hand around my waist right now, like little details like that, like,
well,
yeah.
one of the things would tell people about self defense as far as like personal safety is be assertive.
Yes.
And I tell people like be assertive. You're better off being assertive and considered to be rude
Yes.
than being victimized.
Not only that, most people, if they realize they went too far and they're not bad, they will apologize. They'll feel bad. You will see them feel bad about it. You'll
Yes.
see right away, oh my, I didn't mean to. Like, and it's maybe the guy had a few drinks and he thought she was coming on to him, and then he got it wrong, and then he's gonna be like, oh, I'm sorry, and you'll see right away a reaction of horror. Oh, I went too far. Someone
Well,
who was get, or maybe that can be a pretense, of course, but what I mean is like, being assertive can also be a good way to detect if someone's not going to accept that rejection.
all
Like
right.
if they,
So
yeah,
going back to being assertive
yeah,
and going back to the grooming process. Okay.
yes,
So when Jeff was grooming my family, then he starts to test my boundary. So I'm driving the car and he
yeah,
puts his hand in my lap and starts kind of rubbing. So he's testing my boundary. If I would have said, Jeff, what are you doing? Get your hands out of my lap.
yeah,
I'm crossed off the list. Jeff does
right,
not pursue molesting me anymore. So as far as being assertive, because a lot of times when predators test boundaries, what they're doing is they're tickling. They're going to tickle and then they're going to fondle their niece. And then when she's like, "You're grabbing my boob, what are you doing?" They're going to go, "Oh, my accident. It was just an accident. I didn't mean to." So they're going to explain it away,
hmm,
but it's going to be in the early stages. So if in the early stages, you teach your child to be assertive and to say no, and I don't ever put the emphasis on a child to stop them from being molested. It's on the parents
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
pay
100%,
attention.
yeah. But I
But
know what you mean. I know what you mean.
but yeah, but if the child is assertive, like, get your hand out of my lap, then he's never putting your hand in his lap. He's moving to the next child, which
But that's for the parents to
unfortunately
experience.
unfortunately is a terrible thing to say, but at least
Well, you
it's
have
not
to
you.
start with somewhere. You start with your own, and you spread the word. And hopefully at some point enough, it's culturally ingrained, and then it's not as easy for them to find a target. So what you say, I think it would be an extremely um, awkward, clumsy way of looking at it. Oh well, you're just doing ping pong. Like, no, that's not it. It's just you start with your own, you spread the word, and over time you try to make it so more people are like that until it becomes a lot more difficult, impossible, for them to do that. That's the goal. Yeah. Well, listen, Jody, it's been like an hour and a half, so and I'm gonna let you go there.
That's hey,
I'm
hey, that's fine. But you know what?
Yeah,
Um, before we came on, I
yeah.
was like, "Hey, let's see the end of the game." And right now, there's 10 seconds left, so I think we should watch the end of the game.
Oh, okay, very well.
No,
So what are you
no,
watching?
wait,
What are you
no,
watching?
but for the record, the game's over. But I had it on pause.
Oh, right.
So my theory is this. My
Yeah.
theory, and we're gonna see if we're gonna
Okay.
prove this.
Can you pause
My
it now so
theory
you
is,
can talk about it before it happens?
yeah, no, well,
Well, it
it's
already
already happened,
happened, but for you, I
but
mean,
we've been talking, so I don't know, but it's coming up. So
okay,
my theory is this: no way the Jets lose on September 11th in New York.
okay,
No way that's going to happen.
okay,
So right now, the Bills are about to run one more play, and then we'll watch the last play together.
okay, very well. Okay, let's see.
Up, incomplete pass. So now you're looking at a 48-yard field goal coming up.
Okay,
So what I'll do is I'll turn the TV. And
Yeah.
again, you can edit this out.
Nah, I'm gonna leave it in. This is funny. This is fun. It's
All right. I say now, for the
yeah.
record, I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Okay.
The NFL, they have magnets in the balls. I say he's going to miss it. Let's see.
Okay.
All right, can you see it? All right, here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. I don't know if we're
I,
allowed to do this, but whatever.
no, it's probably not. But here we go. He's going to miss this. No way the Jets lose on 9/11.
Okay. This is like a Nintendo Entertainment System quality there.
And it was good. The magnets took over, but it was good. So I guess it's going to overtime. I guess you'll have to go look it up.
Overtime. Oh, it's
Now,
overtime. Okay.
there's
So
2 seconds left yet. So, but
imagine if I
anyway.
Google it now and I'm like,
Oh, who won?
no, I'm not gonna do that to you. I was making a
No,
joke
no,
about
no,
doing
no,
that.
no, no. I want to know. I want to know while we're here.
Oh, okay. Well, so it's Jets and dude,
The
I don't
Bills.
watch football. I'm sorry.
Oh, so you.
Let's see. I'm gonna
All right, so
Google
Google real quick. Jets and Bills.
Jets and Bills, not versus. Okay, I'm used to MMA, so so is it done now? NFL yesterday, final overtime. Oh yeah, because it's midnight, right? It's past midnight here. Buffalo Bills 16, New York Jets 22.
Jets were not going to lose on 9/11. Not New York. They weren't.
First time in my life I look up football stats. And that was
Is
for
that
you,
really?
man.
Well, hey, there you go. I'm proud, but there's no way the Jets. I even was like, the bet is the Jets money line because there's no way in New York City on 9/11 the New York
Yeah, that is.
Jets. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, NFL. You really going to put Jets on 9/11?
Yeah, that's. I mean, yes, it makes sense, right? It's. I think that's why, as a quick side note, I think that's why superhero movies took off so much because it happened at a moment where people needed escapism, and that was when the Spider-Man, Raimi, and Maguire movies came up, and I think that's why superhero movies in the early 2000s started because people needed that escapism. Whereas now I think we're, anyway, uh, but okay, well, I'm happy that yeah. So Jets
All
was the
right,
team you
so
wanted to win, right?
all right, so one more time, let's
Yes. Yes.
why Gary why Amazon.com.
Mhm.
You can get the audio book, the digital book, or you can get a physical copy. The paperback. Anybody watching, if you want a signed copy, I keep some on me all the time. It's going to be the price of the book on Amazon or through me is $20. If you get it through me, it's $5 shipping and handling because that's just what I got to pay. But you can get a signed copy, and I promise you, if you're a parent, if you're a survivor, it's worth the read. It really is. My fear is that when I die, it's going to become a bestseller because it's not a bestseller right now. But I assure you, it is. It's got a lot of valuable information for a lot of people.
I think so because and I think like normally when a show is over, I often like hit myself for having missed something or I wish I had emphasized more how much work you did in this area. You mentioned it, but you've worked a lot as far as prevention, helping victims, helping the people who help them. Like so. For
I
sure, I
think
can't
I
wait
think the
to hear it. I
people
can't wait to listen to it. But yeah, go ahead.
I think the people will enjoy this more than the gloom and doom of what happened to Rape Crisis Center.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's I like that you said you don't dwell on the details because people know what happened. There's no need for that. And
I
I
got
think
a
even the
hospital report.
movie, yeah, I think even the controversial apparently the movie Son of Freedom. I haven't seen it yet, but it's actually
It's not.
PG-13. Huh?
It's not controversial.
But some people claim it. I mean, look, I'm not a right wing or anything, but I have no issues with what I know of the movie, and I'm sure when I watch it, I'm not gonna have any issues either because like freeing kids from slavery is cool. It's a
Let me,
cool
well,
thing
yeah,
to do.
yeah.
So
Let me just say this:
yeah,
anybody who has an issue with that movie, is against
yeah,
human trafficking.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
no, you're the problem,
yeah.
not the movie. And look, the movie, and my one friend was like, "Well, it's not factual." I'm like, "Was Rocky factual?" I mean, a white guy fighting. Well, I guess now, but uh, back in the '70s, a white guy fighting for the heavyweight champion that didn't work out well for him. You can look it up. That's why Rocky was made.
Yeah.
You know,
Bill Burr again. Bill Burr made a joke about Philly. That you had to get you have a fictional boxer just because he's white instead of the actual.
yeah,
Uh,
Joe Frazier's from Philly,
yeah,
but they got a statue of Rocky. One beat Muhammad Ali, the other beat a fictional character in a movie.
Creed.
Hey, wait, he actually lost the first one. Frazier won the first one against Ali.
Yo,
So,
it's
but yeah, no.
it's
Anyway, so yeah,
I lost
so
my train of
McDojo
thought.
Life, go follow McDojo Life if you haven't seen, and go follow the Cajun Ninja
Very well.
for
I will
those watching.
exactly. Kajun Ninja I didn't know about, so I'll go follow him. And yeah, do you have a code for Audible or is it Amazon?
No, I'm going to send you a promo code. That's for like media and stuff like that. So,
Okay,
but no, you can get the book on Amazon on
okay,
Audible as well. So you can get the Audible, you can
perfect.
get a digital copy if you have a Kindle. Um,
I don't. I don't.
uh,
Unfortunately. But I
I'm
pity.
surprised I don't have one on me because I love Kindles. I got like 5 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Kindle, paperback, or audio. You can get all three on Amazon.
Oh, nice. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That. Oh, wait, paper. The code covers paperback, or did I misunderstand?
No, no, no. I'm going to
Ah,
send you a code for the Audible.
for the Audible. Perfect.
I'm
Okay.
talking. I'm
Okay.
talking to
Okay.
the listeners. The listeners can
Oh, my
go.
bad.
Yeah, no, no. I'm
I
going
was
to
like,
send you
oh,
the
I'm getting
Audible code.
physical goodies. Oh, no, I'm not.
I can send you a physical copy too as well. But I'll tell you what.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd rather send you a digital copy because it's like expensive to mail books to Canada. I got
Yeah,
to
no,
like
no,
I
no,
said.
don't do it. It's fine because odds are, even though I prefer in theory physical books, odds are the audio one is the
It's
one I'm
something
gonna
you
have
listen
time
to.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I can work out and listen to it, or so it's
it's only
yeah.
6 hours.
I've become a heathen as far
It,
as I don't read my books anymore. I listen to them
yeah,
like
no,
young people
my
do.
books. It's only 6 hours and 3 minutes on audio, and I say 6 hours because 3 of that minutes is me just introducing the narrator, because I wanted the people to hear my voice because I can't read a book. I mean, my friend Toby
Okay,
did a
yeah.
great job
Okay,
with it.
so it's like kind of like this is you, and someone's gonna narrate what you wrote, but it
Yes,
so they knew. Yeah, no, again, very smart. Yeah, because you get
yeah,
kind of like the personal approach. But look, this is a guy who actually knows how to read a book to be listened to, and yeah.
yeah, and we worked on it for several months, and it came out. I actually like the audio book better than the book, and I wrote the
Okay,
book. So
okay, okay. Well, that the guy must have done a very good job then. Okay, awesome. Okay, Joey, before I guess the last thing, first of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. This is like, I'm very happy to have had this conversation. It was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I was really expecting to be really depressed in the end, and it's still a lot of serious stuff to chew on for sure. But you know, you do have a knack for I guess for spreading the message in a way that doesn't leave someone ready to go drink whiskey or something, uh, in, in, a, in a bar, like, or if you do it's in a fun way.
I'm
Not,
about to.
okay, in a fun way. Not in a I was thinking more like someone drinking by themselves, like oh my god.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, yeah, thank you very much for your time. And as a final thing, where can people find you online? I'll put the
Everywhere.
links, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying everywhere. I'm the easiest person to find online.
I'll just
Uh,
put some links. I'll put some
at
links.
J
Yeah.
at J Plauché on Twitter, and that's at JPLAUCHE. Um, I don't really do Instagram a lot. I do post a few pictures like twice a year. Um, but my website, jodyplauché.net. Um, you can always follow me or message me on Facebook. That's about it.
Okay, cool. Well,
Well, and if you go to my
yeah,
website, then you have access to my email. So I mean,
yeah.
I mailed a book to Australia like a month ago, and it finally arrived today. I got an email from the woman, and she's like, "Thank you very much." So, but yeah, I mean, I'm very easy to get in touch with. So if you can't find me, hopefully no one wants to assassinate me, because if you can't find me, you can't find nobody.
Who? No, I think no. I don't think they know. They knew your father. They're like, oh, I'm not gonna mess with Jody.
Well, well, he's dead. Now you have people who are against Sound of Freedom, so maybe they might come get me.
Ah, gee, isn't that a depressing thought? I mean, people should be able to compartmentalize things like, in my book, like, it doesn't matter. Like, to me, it's like, if you have saved kids from slavery, I don't care if you voted for the same guy as I did. I mean, I'm Canadian, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it's kind of like that one takes precedence. I'm gonna buy you a beer if you save kids from slavery, beyond the fact of who you think is a cool politician or not. It should not matter. Like, the president should be your freaking hero when you do stuff like that. In my book, but yeah, I don't know.
All right, one more quick story before I go. All
Go
right,
ahead. Go
so
ahead.
my friend Nicole lives in Edmonton.
Yeah.
All right, I met her in August of 2001. I was at a conference in Edmonton,
Yeah.
and she was 18. I was much younger back then too.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I've made the running joke, hey, I can make you an American. I can make you an American. I can make you an American. So finally, when Trump was voted in office, I
Yeah.
was like, can you make me a Canadian? Can you make me a Canadian?
Oh man, I just think, you mentioned Australia real quick. So you have a read in Australia. I think Australia is the one that has the system that I really like. I think it's them, where you can vote for a party that's not part of the big ones, but if they don't get enough votes, you have like a second, third choice where you can kind of like vote for, this is the party I really want to win, but the vote is not wasted. If they don't get enough percentage of the votes, then it goes to your second choice or something like that. And then sometimes parties win and they see they have a percentage of votes that was originally for this party. They might even incorporate some of those things that were brought up during the election campaigns and all that into their own agendas, because they're like, oh, we got a lot of voters that were initially voting for that, so let's bring them in. And I think that's such a better system than just that like two-party system of like, well, like, you want the shark or the crocodile, like.
Or as South Park said, you want a turd or a dude sandwich. I mean, like, just you're not going to win one way or the other. Now, I will say this: just as I
Yeah.
predicted the Jets winning on 9/11,
Yeah.
Trump will be America's next president.
It wouldn't surprise me. It surprised me the
It's
first
all
time. It's
it's
not going
all
to surprise me the
scripted.
second.
It's all
Because
scripted and rigged.
Biden was such a bad choice, man. Like, it's like,
No, Biden, I feel bad for Biden because I mean he's being used. So that's all. You know what? I don't think I have enough
well,
battery to go in this on my phone.
no, we
But
shouldn't, because that would detract, I think, also from the main conversation. And we
yeah,
don't
because
have
I
time
don't like
for
to
it.
do
And
politics. But
yeah,
come here,
yeah,
Lola. I want to show you something. Come here.
yes.
Oh, let me get her.
Yeah.
Come see. She don't want to be seen.
Oh,
It was
is
my
that a doggy?
kitty. No,
Oh,
my
kitty.
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 So
Okay.
all right. So this is the best I can do. My sister got me this
Okay.
during COVID, during the shutdown. It's a
Oh my
blanket. It's a blanket with her face on it.
god.
But I found her. She was like a little baby kitten. She was like
Yeah.
this big, and she was walking down the interstate, and she was on the shoulder. And I was on my way to Houston, and I saw this little thing walking on the side of the road, and I pulled over, and I'm thinking she's gonna run from me and get hit by a truck, but no, she came right to me, and she's been with me ever since. But she won't come to me right now. She
Yeah.
tried to get in earlier at the beginning of the interview, but I didn't want to interrupt the interview to let
Oh,
her
that
in.
would have
But
been cool, man. That would have been cool. Well, I mean, depending what part of the conversation it was, I guess. But
anyway, so feel free to cut all this shit out. But
no, I won't. I won't. I'm just. I mean, unless you want me to, but
no,
I'm
I
gonna
don't.
leave it in. I'm lazy. I'll just leave it in. I'll be like, people are like, wasn't this supposed to be over 10 minutes ago? And like, but there you go. You're a hero even towards cats, not just people in call centers.
I got
There
her.
you go. There you go.
Look,
I'm legit putting that. If I can get a good, I might put that as the actual screenshot. With the cat.
she, no, and look, she loves me more than my parents, more than my dad. She loves me more than my dad. Like for whatever reason, if I'm cooking, she sits in the kitchen and she watches me cooks. If I'm reading at the table on my computer, she sits on the table. If I'm in bed, she's in the bedroom with me. Like if I don't feed her and she's hungry, she wakes me up in the morning. Like she's the best cat I've ever had. And
Yeah.
if I show attention to another cat, she shits in my bed.
So you kind of got the Amber Heard of cats.
I do. Yes. Maybe I'll change her name from Lolo to Amber.
Okay, Jody. seriously, like at this point, it's easy to I can say like very honestly, like I could do this forever, but I think we're almost at 2 hours now, 1:45 or something. So
But we can always do it again.
I will take you up on that.
I'll tell you what,
Seriously, yes.
when the Cain Velasquez verdict or whatever was resolved, we can do it again.
Okay, that yeah, let's do that. Let's definitely do that. There you go. That now we I don't know what the date will be, what time and day, but yeah, that sounds good, man. Let's do it again.
All right.
Everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for coming to the show.
You have a good one.